Alrighty, so as we're near the end of the season, and also there's reports saying that the league is set to add a fourth DP spot heading into next season, I thought this was a perfect time to look at all these DP players in the Western Conference. And tomorrow I'll make a video about DP players in the Eastern Conference and kind of taking a look at them with their respective team and also the salary that they are currently earning, because that's a big judging point in terms of whether or not if these contract that is given to the specific player that is under designated player tag is worth the amount. And we'll see that there are some that are really good contract and there are some that are really bad contract, and that I might even make a follow-up video at the end of the season looking at some of the best DP contract in the league and some of the worst DP contract in the league this season. So we start off with Austin FC, as I'm going to go alphabetical order, though talk about Minnesota United last because I actually got the alphabetical order wrong when I wrote the board. I forgot Minnesota after LAFC. But for Austin FC, they currently have all three DP spot filled. In fact, pretty much every team except for LAFC and St. Louis City are the only team to have not all of their DP spot being filled this year. So for Austin FC, you got Sebastian Dreyusi, who's currently earning $6.02 million. And by the way, this is guaranteed compensation salary that I put, and I got that from the MLSPA salary guide that they have on the MLSPA website. But yeah, he's earning $6.02 million, one of the highest salary a player has earned this season. Then you got Rigoni with 2.04 million and Alex Ring with 1.64 million. Now, keep in mind, Alex Ring is out of contract, and that I think Austin FC have just announced recently in their end of season roster move they have exercised the another year of his contract because he's already met the benchmark in terms of it automatically trigger that he's going to be staying with the team for another season. Now, Rigoni, his contract is still going to be active heading into next year. So, as much as I know a lot of Los Verdes fans want Rigoni to move on or to get cut by this team because of how bad this contract is, and that again going back to what I said in terms of a follow-up video looking at some of the worst contract in terms of the league this season that is labeled as a designated player tag. Rigoni is definitely going to join that list. I mean, it's been a rough season for Rigoni. It's been really rough for him ever since he have joined the team. And then, of course, Treyusi. I mean, I know this was a down year for him, and you might say that contract that they gave him might not be worth it judging by the performance he had this year. But again, this was still just a down year for him. I mean, he is a guy that last season, if it wasn't for Hani Mukhtar going nuclear, he would have won the MVP trade on. I think it's definitely worth the amount, and that not to mention, I still think Dreyusi is one of the best number 10 in the league, and that you with that amount that they gave him, I think it's worth it when you consider him to be one of the best number 10 in the league. Then we look at the Colorado Rapids, who I'm actually surprised that they have all three DP spot filled up because, it was just a year ago that they actually have all three of their DP spot being open, and it feels like they refuse to do so. And as much as I know, there's been people saying, well, it looks like the Colorado Rapids never will have DP. Well, they technically do, and all three of them are being filled up. We got Kevin Cabral with $1.8 million, Rafael Navarro with 1.42 million, and Andres Maxo with 1.29 million. Now, keep in mind, all three of these players was brought in this season. For Rafael Navarro, he was actually brought in during the summer, and all three of these contracts are not really good contract. I mean, the Kevin Cabral contract, I mean, this was always a gamble for the Colorado Rapids, hoping that when they bought him, he could revitalize his career. That has not happened whatsoever. And then Navarro bought in this summer. He's been very underwhelming too. Definitely not worth the DP tag they had. And the same goes for Andres Maxo, who my feeling in terms of when teams decide to sign a defender on a DP contract. It's always kind of an unwritten rule and a cardinal sin that you don't give out defender on a DP contract unless he's one of the best defender in the league. And Andres Maxo is definitely not that. He's been a very mediocre kind of defenders, and that, in other words, basically the contract that the Colorado Rapids are given to in terms of labeling their DP player has just not been worth it whatsoever. And it's not a big surprise. The Rapids has been one of the teams. There are definitely certain teams that have got their DP player and got the best out of them. RR Rapids is not one of them. In fact, probably one of the worst team in terms of getting the best out of their DP players and always sign some really strange and bad DP contract. And you could argue all three of those players. They're definitely not worth the designated player tag, even though they're not really making that much money in terms of their salary. Now we look at FC Dallas. We got Jesus Ferreira at 1.85 million, Paul Arriola with 1.73 million, and Alan Velasco with 1.4 million dollar. Now Jesus Ferreira, it's been an okay kind of season for FC Dallas. I mean, I know that he started hot, but he kind of faded away near the end of the season, which was kind of the problem he had last year too. Paul Arriola, he's been having an injury riddle season. He just couldn't stay healthy this year, and there's a question that they're if they decide to keep him for another season, they're hoping that he not only can stay healthy but can bring back that attacking product that when they decided to sign him last year. Paul Arriola definitely brought that. But in terms of Alan Velasco, that's probably the best contract out of the three in terms of the free designated player that is labeled for FC Dallas, and I would argue it's one of the best DP contract too, because Alan Velasco has really break through this season to a point where he was didn't he wasn't he named the 22 the best player in the 22 under 22 player, and was named the young player of the year. I might be mistaken though, but Alan Velasco had an amazing season, and that again, that was kind of the thing that Dallas was hoping that he could be last season, and last season it was kind of a little underwhelming. But this year he has definitely stepped up, and this could definitely be a guy that, if we look at all these players that sell for a big amount of money, Alan Blasco is definitely going to be one of those players that could be sold off for a big amount of money. And especially, you're a great player when you even made it into the Argentine national team as Velasco did this year. So yeah, again, one of the best DP contract in my opinion that Dallas of course got, and that's something that they usually don't get it right. Dallas is also another team that has not really got the best in terms of their DP players, but certainly they definitely got it from Alan Velasco. And you could even say maybe in some way Jesus Ferrer too. And at least for last year, it was definitely Paul Arriola. Now for the Houston Dynamo, we got Hector Herrera at 5.25 million, Sebastian Ferrero at 2.13 million, and Teenage Adabi with 1.28 million. Now, for those of you who wonder how is Sebastian Ferreira on this list, even though he's not on the team. Well, that's because they decided to loan him out, and when you decide to loan out a player, that doesn't mean that you automatically have that DP tag off of your list. So even though Sebastian Ferrer is not a Houston Dynamo player right now, when he does come back, he's still going to be labeled as a DP player, and I'm pretty sure the Dynamo are really hoping that they eventually would ship him off, because yeah, you talk about one of the worst DP contract in the league, and one of the best, or not one of the best, but one of the worst DP signing ever. Seba Ferreira is definitely up that list. I mean, this season, pretty much had zero goal contribution. Really kind of fall into the doghouse of Ben Olsen, and eventually didn't get a chance to play for the team at all. Hector Herrera, of course, no, knowing that he has really kind of turned back the clock this season, and has really looked like what he was doing the prime Hector Herrera with the Mexican national team, and when he was with we're still in Europe. Definitely, even though the contract is a little bit steep and they give him a lot of money, it's definitely worth it, because he's been a key contributor of why the Dynamo is in the Western Conference Final. And then talk about bad contract too, Tina DB. I mean, this has been a bad contract since last season too. It's hard to believe he's still a DP player, even though he hasn't even played for the team very often. And that again, the Dynamo last season, I think when you have all three of those players, you could say that I think Severfer did had a good season last year, but then this year, obviously, yeah, his value completely tanked. I think if it wasn't for Hector Herrera perform at the rate that he is, Dynamo probably has probably the worst return rate in terms of their free DPS that they currently have. Then we look at Sporting KC. We got Alan Polito at $2.2 million, Eric Tommy at $1.65 million, and Gadi Kinda at $900,000. Now, all three of these DP players, I think, is worth good value, even though I know Gadi Kinda has been been injured for most of the season. But for $900,000, and I think there is a report that he could potentially get bought down. That could still open up another DP spot that Sporting KC could have. But otherwise, their other two DP has really produced well. I mean, Eric Tommy, ever since he came into the league, has been one of the most underrated midfielder in the league. And then Alan Polito winning the comeback player of the year and doing Alan Polito thing of scoring goals. Yeah, Sporting KC, safe to say they have got the best out of the players that they have that is currently labeled as a designated player. Now we look at the LA Galaxy. So for the Galaxy, we got Chicharito at one of the highest earner in the league. I think he's the third highest earner in the league behind Jordan Shaqiri and Lorenzo Insigne at 7.44 million. Then you got Douglas Costa at 4.5 million and Ricky Puig at 1.73 million. Now, at the time of this recording, I believe they've already moved on from both Chicharito and Douglas Costa. Obviously, they did not pick up Costa contract, even though he had a decent kind of second half of the season. But yeah, I think for the Galaxy, they already knew that even before the second half of the season that he has, they were ready to move on from him. And you talk about one of the biggest busts and one of the worst contract in terms of a player that got as a DP player, and one of the worst DP signing. Douglas Costa is definitely going to be right up there. And we kind of knew that was the case when they decided to sign him a year and a half ago, and it's pretty much living up to that name. And then Chicharito, again, it's been a very it's kind of tough to judge whether or not if Chicharito was relatively successful with the Galaxy. I mean, on one hand, he has had some prolific years for the Galaxy, but on the other, the massive amount of contract that he have got it, and not to mention, this year it's so sad to see that his final year with the Galaxy would end him with a torn ACL, and that again, for a guy that has battled a lot during his spell with the LA Galaxy, that's just such a tough way for them to move on. But the good news for the Galaxy now is that they have two DP spot open, and that's something that I don't think have said about the Galaxy in a long time. Considering this has been a team that have always been completely jammed up in terms of the DP spot, to a point where they even had to find a loophole in terms of trying to get through the third DP rules that we saw a couple of years ago. Now, looking at their intercity rival LAFC, so LAFC is one of the two teams that don't have all three DP spot filled. They have Carlos Vela and Denise Bawanga as their only designated player, and I think it's almost like it's a giving rule for LAFC and for John Forrington. They're not going to use that third DP spot no matter what, and I don't blame them. Consider that third DP spot always seems to be a little bit cursed. I mean, whoever they bought in as the third designated player just have not worked out whatsoever. So I guess maybe they'll be happy that they're just going to keep it at 2 DP. Though again, there could be a case that LAFC could actually have their two designated player spot available this off season, which that just sounds ridiculous with the amount of talent that LAFC has had. That now they have two designated players spot, and maybe even three designated players spot if we're gonna go with the 4 DP rule. Because Carlos Vela, he currently has earning 4.38 million. I don't think he's gonna come back next season. I mean, his contract is out. His contract is done this winter. I would be surprised if they decide to bring him back. I mean, it's been a great run for Carlos Vela, and he's definitely going to be remembered as a club legend for this team. But this season was really. I mean, this season, and really maybe last season too, was the beginning of the end for Carlos Vela. He just does not have it anymore in him. He's definitely gone to a point where he just can't be that instrumental player that we saw a couple of years ago. I mean, I think he really peaked in 2019 when he had that incredible season, winning the MVP, and then contributing in 34 goals, and contributing over like 59 goals, which the record actually could be in jeopardy because Denis Bouanga is 1 goal short in terms of the most goal contribution a player has ever had in a single season. Speaking of Denis Bouanga, $2.47 million is definitely going to go down to be one of the best, if not the best, DP contract that we've seen this season, with the way that he's been contributing a lot for this LAFC team to a point where he won the Golden Boot award. Then we look at the Portland Timbers. So you got Evander, Jimmy Chara, and Yaroslav Nishgoda as a free DP. Evander currently made 2.23 million, Jimmy Chara with 1.8 million, and then Yaroslav Nishgoda with 1.2 million. Now, I actually did see what the Timbers did today in terms of them announcing their end of season roster, and they've already said that they're not going to renew Yaroslav Nishgoda's contract. And it's unfortunate because Nishgoda seems like he's having the same issue as Chicharito, a guy that pretty much is not going to have his contract renewed after suffering another devastating injury. Though, it seems like both Evander and Jimmy Chara is going to return. I mean, Evander, it's been a very mixed bag and kind of a polarizing season. First season with the Portland Timbers. I mean, you can't really say is he good or is he bad because there has been some moment that he's been good, and then there's some moment that he turns look like he is one of the worst DP player in league history, and that $10 million that the Timbers gave him clearly was not worth it with some of the performance that he has. And then Jimmy Chara again, he's been pretty disappointing for the last season, and unfortunately, I think they're stuck with him at least for another year because his contract is still heading into 2024. So yeah, at least for the Timbers, the good news is they have one DP spot being open. The Timbers are kind of going through a transitional period. They're hoping to maybe open two DP spot or potentially will have two DP spot open if the fourth DP rule does implement next season. But yeah, this is a team that for the past couple of years they have done a good job in terms of getting the best out of their DP player. But yeah, this year you can say that has not been the case with all three of their DP player kind of performance below par. Then we got Real Salt Lake. We got Chicho Arango, Jefferson Savarino, and Demir Krylak. Now, Chicho Arango, when he came to RSL, he really came back to MLS with a bang, to a point where now when he was scoring goal left and right, he was really letting LAFC regret letting him go a year and a half ago, and eventually coming back to MLS. But really, for whatever reason, we didn't see him in the latter part of this season, and even heading into the playoffs. I mean, I don't know what Chicharrongo did to deserve to be coming off the bench for Pablo Mastroeni, or maybe it's just that it seems like Mastroeni think that him coming off the bench will make a big impact too, just as he is as a starter. But yeah, I mean, I just don't know what happened to him for a guy that was just scoring for fun, like what we've seen doing his time with LAFC. Now, for Jefferson Savarino, it's also been a very mixed season for him, to a point where he has some good moments. But then we also remember where near the end of the season, where he actually called out the RSL team when RSL basically said that he was dealing with an injury, and Jefferson Savarino basically called him out on his social media account that he is not suffering an injury, is that he actually is being benched. Which, yeah, if that was the case, that has to be such an embarrassing moment if you're a club saying that, well, this guy is dealing with injuries, and then the player that are supposed to keep their mouth shut, that they're faking injury even though they're actually being benched, are basically calling you out on social media. Yeah, that was not a great moment for both Jefferson Savarino and certainly for RSL. And then you got Demir Krylak at 1.65 million. There's a question whether if Demir Krylak could come back this year for RSL, especially. I think he's also out of contract this season too. I mean, Demir Krylak has been such a legend for RSL for the past couple of years, but you can clearly see this season he started to slow down. He's kind of having a very similar situation with Carlos Vela, a club legend, has done so much for the team, but age and father time is starting to catch up to him. So it could be a case that RSL could have one DP spot open this off season if Krylak is eventually going to move on from this team. Then we look at the San Jose Earthquakes, and for a long time the Quakes have always been one of the worst teams in terms of getting the best out of their DP, but this year it's kind of a little different. Christian Espinoza, probably the most underrated winger in the league. I mean, the fact that he's not getting enough appreciation of what he has done this season, and at times single-handedly carry this Quakes attack, is just criminal. And the contract he has $1.26 million. By far one of the best DP contract that I've seen this year. And it's a sign of the apocalypse when I'm saying that a Quakes player on a DP tag is not only performing to the level that he should be, but is even overperforming and is under a very friendly DP contract. I mean, that's what Christian Espinoza has done. It's been just a breakout season for him. And the same goes for Carlos Carrezo. I mean, we knew that this was a good signing for the Quakes, and he kind of lived up to his bargain, making 1.57 million. Another guy that is very underrated in terms of that number 6 spot. The only player that I will say that kind of had a disappointing season is Jamera Montero out of the deep. As a Quakes DP player, I think he's been having a very underwhelming season compared to what we saw last year, and currently have a $1.29 million. But like I said, it is definitely a sign of a apocalypse when you see that not one but two Quakes player that is under a DP contract is actually performing up to its designated player expectation, and even in some exceed that expectation too. Because for a long time, I don't recall any time that the Quakes, in terms of their designated player that is not named Chris Wondolowski, that is living up to the DP tag. The Quakes have signed some of the worst designated players that I've ever seen in league history. So it's kind of refreshing that they are getting the best out of their designated player this year. Now we look at the Seattle Sounders. So you got Nico Ladero at 3.25 million, Raul Ruidiaz at 3.2 million, and then Albert Rusnak with 1.87 million. Now we all already knew that Nico Ladero is pretty much have one step out of the door. I mean, the Sounders haven't announced it yet, but it's pretty clear that Ladero is leaving, and that the Sounders is going to guarantee that they're gonna have like at least one DP spot open, or even two DP spot if we go with the fourth DP rule. But there's a chance that we could even see them have a free DP spot open if we're going with the fourth DP rule if Raul Ruidiaz doesn't come back. I mean, Ruidiaz, I think he might be he's out of contract this year. There's been talks that it's very 50-50 between him whether he's gonna come back or not, but still, this Sounders team this off season, they definitely got some interesting decisions to make, especially the attack, because when you look at the core that they currently have, it seems like they're going to have to go through a bit of a retool, especially on the attacking end, and I won't be surprised that this offseason they're going to be really be looking for those DP player, or even maybe in the summer transfer window too, because the Sounders have always been a team that rather do their big business in the summer compared to what we see in the winter. But that could change though, because Garth Lagerwey is no longer with this team, and we'll see how Craig Wable will approach this, especially with them desperately needing some attacking power that was definitely lack of this year. Then we get to St. Louis City. They're one of the two teams that doesn't have all three DP spot filled, but you could argue they are probably one of the team that gets the best out of their DP player out of all these teams. In fact, probably out of all 30, well, not 30 team. We're not a 30 team yet, but out of all 29 team, because both Joe Klaus and Edouard Leuven is performing over the expectation, and easily, I would say, two of the best player in terms of living up to their DP contract. For Joao Klaus, 1.37 million, Edouard Leuven, $1.34 million, and that, if St. Louis City can continue to hit the right button as they have done this year in terms of constructing a roster, don't be surprised a third DP spot or even a fourth DP player that comes into this team will hit the ground running and perform well, just as they done in terms of their first two DP signing in club history. Then we look at the Vancouver Whitecaps. We got them actually. They're actually another team that currently have two out of their free DP spot. Although on the website it's labeled Sergio Cordova as a designated player, even though that's not true, because he's no longer with this team. He's been transferred to Turkey in September. So yeah, the only two DP is Ryan Gaul and Andres Cubas. Ryan Gaul, $2.5 million. Andres Cubas, $1.14 million. Talk about another team that has got the best out of their DP. Vancouver Whitecaps have done so exactly. And again, it's also kind of a sign of a apocalypse to see that the Vancouver Whitecaps are getting the best out of their DP player because historically the Whitecaps has been one of the worst team in terms of getting the best out of their DP players. But both Ryan Goal a big contribute in terms of the attack, and Andres Cubas, another very underrated number 6 in the league, are contributing. Yeah, I think this team is definitely getting their best out of their DP player, and that they do have one DP spot open, but there's rumors saying that it seems like if they decide to exercise Richie Laryea purchase option, which I think they could potentially do so, he could be labeled as a designated player because the contract that the Vancouver Whitecaps are going to give to Richie Laryea is going to be past the DP threshold. Then we look at lastly Minnesota United again. I kind of got gone out of order because when I did this list, I forgot to put Minnesota after LAFC. So with all three of their DP slot being filled, we got Timu Puki, Emmanuel Reynoso, and Mender Garcia. But there is a chance that Minnesota could have one DP spot open because I know Mender Garcia. There's been talks that his contract is going to be bought down because he has the cheapest contract out of any designated player in the Western Conference and really in MLS in general. There's no designated player that have got this low of a contract at $372,000, and there's a chance that he is going to be bought down. So if that is the case, you have both Timu Puki and Reynoso being the two DP, and Minnesota has been a team that has had problem in terms of getting their best out of their designated player. But as of now, if you say that Mender Garcia is going to be bought down and his contract is no longer be a DP, Minnesota has actually got pretty good contribution out of their two DP player. I mean, Reynoso is Reynoso obviously, and Timu Puki really turning it on in the latter part of the season, and that I know this team is going to go through a transitional period after a disappointing season that we saw in 2023, but don't be surprised that they might. I think if there is a designated player that Minnesota might need to get, it's got to be that midfield. I mean, that midfield is a big issue this year. I mean, I don't think they need to go as extreme as signing a DP defender. I mean, the last time they did so, they got a guy called Francisco Calvo, and yeah, that didn't go so well for this team. So yeah, it's interesting to see how they're going to do with those two DP spot being open, and that's under the fourth DP role because I'm gonna assume that they are gonna indeed bought down Mender Garcia's contract, especially with the way that he is actually fell below the DP threshold in terms of the earning that he's currently have. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at all the DP players in the Western Conference. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. And tomorrow I'll make the Eastern Conference version, taking a look at all the designated player in the Eastern Conference. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you like, smash the subscribe button. And yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.